Hello, welcome back to Creative Matthew. I'm going to give you a little example of some digital techniques, mainly two different ones that you can use, and why digital is good for actual career-wise, like if you're working for a company doing an illustration for them, or if you're doing concept art for them. First one is, like, let's say they just want line drawings. It's not going to be a finished illustration. They just want some ideas, either for a character or creature. One thing you can do with digital that you can't really do otherwise, you can't really do traditionally, is, like, let's say you're using a red panda as an example. You're going to make it into a character. Well, traditionally, you'd have to pretty much plan the whole thing out. You do a bunch of thumbnails, a bunch of little drawings, and you draw it out until you find something you liked, and then you would then do that large. Here, let's say I already like the head as it is. I don't need to change the head much, so I want to focus on the head, and then I can figure out the body afterwards. What I can do is I can take my reference, zoom in on the head, zoom in on the face, and then draw that, which I'll start doing. And as I'm drawing that, after I'm done drawing it, I can then shrink it down. You can't really do that digitally or traditionally if you want to keep it traditional. I guess if you wanted to make something that had a watercolor fill that looked really like watercolor, you could start with actual watercolor and then scan it into your computer, keep that as it is, and start adding things to that. That might be a little technique, but otherwise you're gonna stick with just traditional the whole time, and in that case you can't really adjust in this way where you can't just shrink something down. Yeah. Let's do this way. Give this guy a way to be a character. Let's do this more steep. Let's see. Trying to give it a little bit of thing. Still a little bit too far this way, so being digital, I can just move it over. If you draw something too far to the left or right traditionally, yeah, you're stuck. It's still more fun to me to do traditional for just my own stuff, but for actual work-wise, it makes a whole lot more sense to do it digitally. And I'm just roughing it in. I can refine it if I want, or if I like it. Like, especially when it's just an idea. This is just going to be this is just a rough idea of what we want. It's just hey, is this the direction you want to go with your character? Is this the right direction, or should we change it? Maybe they decide that they don't like the whole red panda character thing, and they decided to scrap that. Say, let's do something completely different. This is what the idea for concept art is. It's just getting ideas out on paper, visually seen, so that they know and they can see what they want or what they don't want. And so here's general thing here. Let's start to do the eyes. Notice I'm zooming in. And you can kind of, like, you can put your head right next to the paper when you're trying to do traditionally, but it's still not quite the same, and it's still probably not good for your eyes. I'm liking how that goes. Now, I want to add fur to it. Right now, my brush can just do an individual thing. I can apply jitter to this brush. That doesn't give me what I want. One option is to use actual fur brushes, which I know I have some. Let's do the it says wet texture, but something with a bunch of dots can work for a brush. Let's apply some spacing. Too much spacing. Nah. One thing you can do digitally that you can't do traditionally is just experiment with these things and then just undo. Still good probably practice doing things in a more traditional, in a more traditional manner, just because you can get used to that. Because when you do something traditional, you've got to take your time, really focus on it and stuff. You can't just do these little tricks and things. If you get too reliant on these tricks and things, then when you actually have to do something that's a little bit more careful, a little bit more focused, it can be a challenge. Practicing things more traditional will help with that. So here I was using just simple that brush. You can also make a brush. In GIMP you can actually just take something like, I can take this and copy it and then use that as a brush automatically. But right now I don't really want to do that. I think this is can be fine as it is. Do this. Not quite spaced out enough. Spacing needs to stay the same. I mean, if this is just a real rough idea, the first stage of a development for a creature or character, you probably wouldn't spend this much time. You'd do line drawing, you might give it a little bit of quick shading just to get an idea of 3D form, but you wouldn't be spending this much time on it because it's just supposed to be quick ideas. When they approve of it, they say, hey, yes, this is what we want. We want you to now take this and we want you to expand it. We want you to add that detail, that sort of thing. That's when you go back and you add all this extra stuff to it. Now that I've done this, still just being a rough, I can then take it, I can shrink it down. Now that is a little light when I shrunk it down, so I can just copy what I've done and then just paste on top of itself and it will darken it up. Now the fur's a little too dark. Leave it. It's just a rough idea. Doesn't need to be anything accurate. And so now we're going to just do a little bit of practice with taking this character, and so now I can roughen an idea of what do I want. Usually if you're going to do the character, so this is kind of going into trying to get a little too simple. Imagine the character doing something, because you want to present the character that rather than just doing like okay, its arms are out here and its body, let's give it actually some life. It'll help sell the character a little bit better. Let's say the character is holding something. Let's give it a sword. it gives the character a little bit of life to it. Being digital, if I wanted to, I could increase the size. I could focus on the body. I could do that brushy thing again, and I can make it look like that. But for your rough data, you want it cleaner than this. But this is just giving you an example of stuff you can do. How I took the head, I focused the head, made it big, and I took it down, and then I add the body and whatever I'm going to do. So that's that. So now let's do an example of, okay, I want to paint something. So I'm not going to actually draw anything. I'm just going to give just a rough. So let's say I'm painting some sort of animal. And so I'm doing this, and this is going to be the texture. So let's go find a texture. Reference photos, animals. Let's go to these references I got from creatureartteacher.com. They have some reference packs that you can buy. You can make any artwork from the photos, but you can't redistribute the photos themselves. I mean, the photos are still, they still own the copyright to the photos, but if you buy them, the pack, what you're buying is the right to make artwork from those photos that you can then sell your artwork, but you cannot sell the photos themselves. See, what would have good, we'll do lion. Let's see, where's a zoomed in one? That could work. Let's do this. So I'm just taking a copy of the fur, copying that fur, pasting it over here, and it's going to be big. Now I'm going to use this tool, which allows me to manipulate things. Photoshop has it, but it's not a brush for Photoshop. Now this fur is going to be kind of warped out, but this is just an example. Now you could take it as is and you can do like grain merge, or you can take it, desaturate it, and if you really want it to show, change the contrast, brightness, contrast. And you get the fur texture within the thing. You're overlaying it, or in this case, grain merge. Overlay, I don't like as much. Multiply makes it a little too dark. GIMP has this grain merge, which I like. I don't know if Photoshop has that or not. But that gives that texture to whatever you painted. And this is just a rough kind of blob. Let's make it so that it doesn't change the alpha. Let's kind of blend this thing together so it's not quite so stark. And then you have something that has some texture to it. That's what we had, and there's it with some texture. So you can use that technique to get your creature looking realistic after they approve. Like, okay, we like this creature, we like the character that you made, we want that to look as if it's going to be in the movie. And let's say the movies are like a live action. So then what you do is, maybe this is supposed to be a character that is friends with a raccoon. We're not going to say which raccoon, but then you would want to go in and you could do this technique where you could take the photos of animals and take the fur, turn it black and white, use the actual grain, which means the texture of it, and put it into the painting that you already did to give a realistic look really quickly. So just little tips and tricks for you guys, and I think that's going to be it for this. So hopefully you had got a little bit of ideas of stuff you can do. This is just very basic stuff. There's more things you can learn. If you want me to do more, let me know. And like, tell other people, get this YouTube channel growing, and let's build a art resource together. So bye bye.